Last week we started a new series talking about various riding scenarios. We kicked the series off with some tips and pointers for riding a motorcycle in the city. This week we'll get out of the city to some more enjoyable riding, in my opinion, and ride in the country. So let's break this video down into threats that are common while riding in the country, and then we'll discuss some tips for riding in the country. First, let's talk about the threats. It may not seem like a threat, but the lack of cell service that you'll often find in the country is something to consider. If you've got a crash or any kind of mechanical failure or other problem while riding in a remote location, not having cell service can be a real hindrance to getting to help. Not to mention that many riders rely on their cell phone service for directions and GPS, and that can be an issue when you're out of tower range. So this is one of the reasons why I prefer using Google Maps for navigation if I'm relying on cell phones for directions, because with Google Maps you can download a region of the map and store it locally on your phone so that you're never without turn-by-turn directions while you're out in the country and away from the cell phone towers. Now this won't help if you need to get help, but at least if you're still riding, you can see easily where you are and you can navigate your way out of it. You just have to make sure and download that region that you're going to be riding in before you head out on the road. Having paper maps is not a bad idea either, if anyone even remembers how to use those anymore, but that's a great backup plan. There are a few satellite communication devices that are available as well and may be worth your investment if you're often in remote locations. The only one that I've got any experience with is from a company called Spot. I used Spot a few years ago on my road trip to Colorado, and it allowed me to get help if I needed to in some of the more remote parts of New Mexico because it communicates with satellites and is not dependent on cell phone towers. So parts of New Mexico I rode to, I was often without cell phone service, but I had connections to get help if I needed it because of the Spot device. I won't go into full details about the Spot, but if you want to research that or other similar products, there are some other products available. Go to mcrider.com/spot and I'll forward you to Amazon and you can research all the different products and options that are available. All of the current Spot devices are much more feature rich than what I used several years ago. If you're anything like me, speed can creep up on you. And riding in the country is one of those areas where it can happen, so it's a good idea to keep a close watch on your speed. I really like motorcycles with cruise control because I could set that cruise control and I don't have to worry about the speed creeping up on me. And one area where it becomes a real problem out in the country is when you come upon a curve. A large percentage of accidents in the city involve another vehicle. A large percentage of accidents in the country involve a single rider, and they often happen in curves. And one of the reasons that they happen in curves is because the rider has allowed their speed to creep up on them and they enter that curve faster than they're capable of dealing with. On longer rides in the country, you can really get lulled into complacency before you realize it, and you've entered a corner with more speed than you're comfortable with, and you either run wide trying to get through that corner or you run into the opposite lane of traffic in order to compensate for it. So take breaks, preferably before you need to, and stay aware of your speed so you don't get in over your head. Another issue to be aware of in the country is the increased chance of crossing paths with wildlife. In my time riding, I've seen a few deer. I've had buzzards who've waited until the last second to take off. I had a bear run in front of me across the road in the mountains of Arkansas, and cattle in the road in South Texas. So it pays to look ahead and adjust your speed accordingly. If you see a deer crossing sign, it's not a suggestion, it's because deer typically cross in that area. So you want to either slow down or keep a close eye on the sides of the roads and keeping your head on a swivel watching for those deer. In the country, you want to pay closer attention to the weather and weather forecast while riding. I was in Monroe, Louisiana a few years ago where I'd stayed for the night on the way back from a road trip to the Tail of the Dragon. So I had stayed for the night. I got up the next morning. I had loaded the motorcycle up and had not checked out of the room yet. I went back up to the room and thought I'd turn the TV on and check the weather because it was kind of cloudy outside. I got on the weather station and it showed that 20 miles up the road, the direction I was traveling, there was a tornado crossing the road that I would have come in contact with had I left right then. So I stayed in the hotel lobby for a little while, let that storm pass before I got out on the road. So it's important to be aware of the weather conditions, not only where you currently are, but where you're going to be riding for the rest of the day. In the city, it's easier to find shelter and get off the road. In the country, out on some of those country roads, that can be a little more difficult. So let's look at some tips while riding in the country. You want to watch your fuel and fill up when you've got the opportunity, and don't try to wait until you need fuel. So I was in New Mexico on a road trip to Colorado several years ago. I had the 99 Honda Valkyrie that didn't have a fuel gauge on it. It was a carbureted motorcycle, so it had a petcock that I had an emergency fuel reserve on. And I had just passed a town about 10 miles back, and about the time I came to a sign that said it was 50 miles to the next gas station, I hit reserve on that Honda Valkyrie. So I pulled over to the side of the road. I did some quick math. I got a little over 30 miles per gallon in the Honda Valkyrie. I knew I had a little over 1.5 gallons of fuel in the tank. Did some quick math and thought, man, I might barely make it there, or I could turn around and drive 10 miles back and fill up. I drove 10 miles back and filled up and played it safe, because that's an awful big motorcycle to push, even if you're only having to push it for that last mile. So get fuel when you've got the opportunity, not when you think that you need it. You may also want to consider carrying extra fuel for emergencies if you're going to be on an extended road trip. Amazon's got some fuel tanks that are designed to be carried in your saddlebags. That'll give you an extra gallon or so of fuel in case you need it for emergencies. In the city, there are a lot of resources. In the country, you're much more self-sufficient. So here are some extra things you might want to consider carrying for rides in the country. In addition to the fuel we've already mentioned, you'll want a first aid kit, you want extra water, you'll want a tire repair kit and a way to get air into the tire, and you want to know how to use it before you get out on the road. You want rain gear and a basic toolkit. A pre-ride inspection on your motorcycle is especially important when riding in remote locations. You want to spot those problems where services, parts, and tools are available, not on the side of some remote country road. I've got a complete list of T-clocks and what to check for on your motorcycle. The T-clocks is a pre-ride inspection that's put out by the Motorcycle Safety Foundation. Go to mcrider.com/T-clocks, and you can see that complete list of things you want to check on your motorcycle, especially if you're going to be riding in the country. Fluid intake is important for the country rides. And just like fuel for your motorcycle, you don't want to wait and drink water when you're thirsty. You want to drink water when it's available, because by the time you get thirsty, it may already be too late. You want to keep yourself well hydrated, and you want to keep that motorcycle tank full. So fuel for you, fuel for the motorcycle, think of it that way. For me, riding some remote road on a motorcycle is what motorcycling's all about. It can be a fun and rewarding experience, and you'll always get a few stories to tell from the road. But the ultimate goal of riding in the country is to ride smartly and with a few precautions, so that the vast majority of your stories can be good ones. Till next week, guys, it's Kevin with MCrider, and I'll see you on the road. There's a whole lot more to MCrider than just the weekly videos. Go to mcrider.com/member. You'll get instant access to the forums and the field guide. You get ad-free MCrider videos and a whole lot more. Go to mcrider.com/member for all the details.